Okay, let's go to Ruth. The book of Ruth is a sweet book, a very beautiful, very sentimental, but it focuses on the covenant as a relationship. So this book actually describes the ancestry of David. The book of Ruth is the story of Ruth, as the book says. And it's a very sentimental book because it has to do a lot with the converts into Judaism. They used to celebrate the consecration of the converts. That somebody converted from any other religion to Judaism by Pentecost. And Pentecost is the book when they read that book. Ruth is written by Samuel. Again, here's something I'm trying to fight. If I should tell you, this might take a little bit of time. It said the book of Judges actually is a bad light for which tribe? It gives a very bad light on which tribe that I ended the book with this very bad story. The tribe of Benjamin. Who is from the tribe of Benjamin? It's King Saul. So the Benjaminites ended up in a very bad state in the book of Judges. And this book is talking about Ruth, who's going to be the grandmother of King David. So one book says Saul comes from an evil ancestry, and the other book says that David comes from a very good ancestry. It's a very interesting way to look at it. So the book of Ruth was written by Samuel, who is the same person who anointed Saul and David. So in a way, he's trying to justify in the book of Judges, why did I bring a king? And the second thing he's trying to justify, why did I anoint another line, not Saul? You can think of it this way. The book of Ruth was written by Samuel, the prophet. It's the simple story that happened during the time of the Judges. This is exactly at the same time where the people were actually going very bad. The book highlights several themes. And the story you all know. This was a woman from the tribe of Judah. Her name is Naomi, and she had a husband and two sons. A famine happens in Judea, and they have no food. They lose their land by putting it out for money. They give the land and they give it to someone rich. He give them money to live by. The money is finished, and they lost the land. They don't know how they're going to bring the land back or redeem it. So what do? The man takes his wife and two sons and immigrate to the land of Moab. Apparently, Moab had more agreeable time or economy than Judea at the time. So they live there. The two sons are married to two Moabite girls, Ruth and Orpah. The man and the two sons, Kilion and Mahlon, the three men died. So they have three widows, a mother-in-law and two daughters-in-law. The mother-in-law says, "You're still young, my daughters." She called them daughters. "So go back to your families, find yourself a husband, and continue your life." And they both first said, "No, we will stay with you. We cannot leave you. You are our mother now. We left our families, etc." And then she insisted. She pushed a little bit. So Orpah left. Ruth stayed with her. And then Ruth stayed with Naomi. Naomi said, "I have no children to give you. And if I hope to get married and have a child, will you wait until that child becomes a man and you marry him? You will be too old. Go, my daughter, find yourself a husband. Go live with your family as you were before." Ruth insisted to stay with her mother-in-law. This is a theme of what we call fidelity or faithfulness or loving kindness. And this is the theme of the Jewish word, chesed or hesed. What does hesed mean? It's exactly that, loving kindness, loyalty, all these feelings that you think about when you read the story of Ruth. So Ruth showed loyalty to her mother-in-law much more in a stark contrast with the Jewish people, the Israelites, the whole tribes, living under the judges, because what we saw with the people doing in Judges, were they loyal to God? No. They were looking for how to cultivate the land. Whoever God is going to make us this prosperous, we'll go with him. Today you have the same thing. People don't care about what God would feel. They don't care about God's feeling. We'll do what makes us get better. That's it. So by doing this, they broke their loyalty to God. While here is a person who is not a Jew, she's not an Israelite, she's a Moabite. Who are the Moabites? We just saw them in the last chapter. They were the people that enticed Israel to do what? Remember when Balaam could not curse the people, what did he advise Balak to do? To do it through the girls of the temples of Baal. But you have here a Moabite girl who was more faithful and more loyal than the Israelites in her time. So this is a very big contrast that Samuel is putting. He's saying David comes from the best lines. He comes from the best ancestors. So loving kindness or kindness that Ruth had for Naomi, and Naomi also for Ruth, because she took her in and treated her like her own daughter, and she wanted to give her everything. The kindness of Boaz to both women when they come back as poor women, and they live in Bethlehem, that's their hometown. Bethlehem is the town of David and the city where Jesus will be belonging. So they live in the city as peasants. They live on begging. So there is a Mosaic commandment. When the time of harvest comes, do not really clean and wipe clean your fields. What should you do? Leave the corners. Leave a little bit so the poor people of your town can come and pick for themselves. So Boaz said to his servants, don't just leave the corners. Also intentionally throw something on the floor, on the ground of the field, so that the poor people can come and take it. So they found this woman, this lady who seems like a stranger. They know the face. She's not from Israel, coming after them and gleaning, picking up. So he sits on like a stone or something by the field, watching the people harvesting, and he's supervising the work. By the way, in the time of the harvest, the owner of the field make a festival. They go out and make a tent, and they sit out in the field in the open. It's beautiful time, it's springtime. There's no rain, and they sit there and they enjoy themselves. They eat and they drink, and they make festivals, and they say stories, and they sing songs, and they dance. It's a very, very joyful time because they're happy with the harvest. So he's watching and see this girl going after his servants, and she's gleaning. Who is this girl? He said, oh, this is the girl from Moab that came with Naomi. Oh, Naomi. Naomi is my second removed cousin. She came back? Yeah. Oh, she seems, and they started telling him stories about Ruth and how she was faithful and how she stuck with her mother-in-law. She didn't want to leave her. So he moved with kindness, with loving kindness toward Naomi and toward Ruth, and started to be very generous with them. He was an older man, but we know from his ancestry, look at this. The ancestry is on the right. He comes from the line of Judah. I debated whether I should put Judah to Salmon or not. Maybe I'll put it later. Salmon is the husband of Rahab. So you understand. And he is the father of Boaz. Now, it seems like Boaz was an old man, didn't get married quickly because his mother was a harlot or a foreigner, that nobody really esteemed him high because he's not from the tribes, purely from the tribes, and his mother is not, a very prestigious woman. So he was left to be single, but he was a good man. His mother was a believer, a convert, and apparently he was a very good and kind man. The second theme that we see in the book of Ruth is the work of the Redeemer, and the name for the Redeemer in Jewish is Goel. In redeeming back the land of Naomi and marrying Ruth. In the law of Moses, when a man dies and have no children, his next of kin, it might be his brother, might be his cousin, might be his uncle, whatever it is, he would marry the wife of the deceased man and redeem the land if he can have the money. and then give the land to the children that they will carry the name of the deceased father. So this is the work of the Redeemer. So this is the work of Redeemer here means the one that takes back, bring back. And Boaz is a symbol or a type of Christ who brought us back to God, who bought us back to God, who had the money, his blood, to buy us back, to bring us back. That's the goal, the Redeemer. They call it in Hebrew, if the redemption is about the blood, they call it Goel Haddam, means the Redeemer of blood. If someone is killed and they have to have somebody to go after the murderer to kill him. But in this case was the land and the line. The third theme, God turned the circumstances of Israel from famine to abundance, and of Naomi from depravity to fullness. The first precede the latter, meaning the famine starts with this. The book starts with the famine, ends with the harvest. Starts with the tragedy in the life of Naomi, and ends with Naomi having a baby from Ruth. But the natural correction happens before the personal one. The nature first recovers from the famine, and then Naomi brings in the recovery of Naomi too. The book tells of the story of King David ancestry, like we see here. And I'm going to ask you this in the questions to tell me the order of things. So Salmon is the father of Boaz from Rahab. Boaz marries Ruth. He gets a child. His name is Obed. Obed is the father of Jesse, and Jesse is the father of King David. Very simple, straightforward. Salmon, like the fish. Boaz is the husband, the redeemer. Obed is the son. Jesse is the grandchild, and David is the king. This is the ancestry of King David. Very sweet story. It's one of the 5 scrolls. They call them the Megillot. And the Megillot is 5 books used for feasts or occasions in the Jewish synagogue. And this book specially is read around Pentecost. Why they read it around Pentecost? Because they said that King David was born in the Feast of Pentecost. And not only that, that the Israelites received the Torah when Moses came down from the mountain on Pentecost. So they say this is the best feast for the converts. And Ruth becomes the best example of a convert because she came to Judaism with her whole heart, right?